you speak a lot about negative emotion. As someone who's very prone to negative emotion and borderline neurotic, I have fairly severe anxiety problems that are being controlled with SSRIs currently. Anyway, my question is there a way to change your temperament? If you're prone to negative emotion, is there a way to fix that permanently? The evidence that writing about your past, of unresolved issues in your past, let's say remaining mysteries, reduces the overall level of stress that you carry with you, because your body computes your average level of stress by calculating something like the proportion of things you don't understand that have happened to you to the proportion of things that you do understand. And you want that ratio to be low. You want to have understood virtually everything that happened to you, so that if the same situation, same potentially problematic situation that did you in the past arises in the future, you know how to deal with that. So getting your story straight in relationship to your past is important. Doing the same in relationship to your future is crucial, because that reduces another level of uncertainty, like another domain of uncertainty. If you're uncertain about where you're going or why, that makes you chronically stressed. Now, conscientious conduct also decreases neuroticism. There's a negative correlation between conscientiousness and neuroticism, and it looks causal in that more orderly and industrious people suffer less from negative emotion. Okay, and that's probably because they put their environments in order, right? They actually keep order in their immediate environment, so things are neat and orderly around them, but they also work hard so that the future is more stable. Okay, so then what else? Excess concern about the narrow self is associated with self-conscious suffering. You can discriminate between people who are depressed and or psychotic and those who are not with about 75% accuracy by calculating the relative number of self-referential pronouns that are used in speech or writing of the people involved. And the more people concentrate on themselves, their narrow selves, the more miserable they are, which means that acute self-consciousness is so tightly associated with misery that they may be essentially the same thing. So now you can't really escape from that trap by consciously trying to think less about yourself, because if you start thinking less about thinking about yourself, you just end up thinking more about yourself. That's not helpful. But what you can do, this is extremely useful, is you can start thinking about how to put other people at ease and what you can do for other people, like how you can be of service. And paradoxically, because that takes the self-conscious stress off you, then your negative emotion levels will fall. Service to others is one of the ways out of negative self-focused emotion. Imagine I asked you, say, why don't you just sit down one day for an hour or maybe across a couple of days and write down all the things that you're afraid of and avoiding that are necessary for you to do to move forward, right? So these would be things that you're not doing that you know you need to do in order for you to move to where you want to move. Then you need to break each of those down. You need a strategy, and a written strategy would be very helpful. You need a strategy of exposure. You're going to be pretty damn afraid to even take a look at the problem. But it'll almost inevitably be the case that if you take a look at the problem, a detailed look, the reality will be less terrifying than the specter that your imagination has conjured forth. And so what you want to do is you want to think about what it is that's producing negative emotion in you, your doubts and your concerns, and then you want to develop a strategy of incremental approach. And that will also fortify you, partly because you reduce the number of things that you're afraid of by actually dealing with those things, so they go away. You actually solve the problems, but also you train yourself to see that you're the sort of person that doesn't have to run from their problems no matter what they are. And that deep learning that you are that sort of person is in fact the solution. There is good evidence that depression in many cases, and associated anxiety, let's say, can be a consequence of inflammatory autoimmune problems. And you got to ask yourself, is there something wrong with you that's making you anxious? You may be physically ill in some complex way. There's a huge literature emerging on the utility of ketogenic and carnivorous diets to redress serious physical and psychological disorders. The data on the carnivore diet in relationship to disease control is extremely positive. Now, there's not a lot of data yet. The studies are hard to do. But don't be so sure that the reason that you're miserable is because there's something wrong with you psychologically. It could easily be that it's the secondary consequence of some physiological illness that's going to be somewhat difficult to specify. Anyways, that's not bad.